I like some fall spirit in the spring, so I was excited. You know, and this is officially halfway to Halloween month, so there you go. It works out.
Yeah, true.
I'm a horror movie junkie and into kind of all things fall, so it makes me happy to think about the fall even when it's not the fall.
Yeah, me too.
Gerardo too. He's a big horror.
Yeah, I
movie.
love fucking horror. I love slasher movies. That's my shit.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And so besides the website that I wrote that for, I write for a few places, but one of the sites I write for is a film site. And what struck me and why I want to talk to you for that site and do an interview is we have a column called Spinema, which is just, you know, kind of the intersection of film and music. And you guys were the subject of a documentary some years ago. I want to talk about that and just talk about, well, since now I just found out you're a big slasher fan, I'll probably want to talk about that too. Kind of works for me. But why don't we start with, you know, who I'm talking to, who each of you are, and kind of what you do, and a little bit about the band itself.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Sergio Nataz. I'm the bass player.
I'm Gerardo Christ. I'm the singer.
And I'm Vicky Vicious. I play the keyboard for Heavenly Trip to Hell.
So who is Heavenly Trip to Hell? For anyone who's new here, who doesn't know who you are.
Well, it's basically Gerardo is my older brother, and then we met Vicky in college, so we're like basically the core of the band. We've had other past members who you know, weren't full time or as dedicated as we are. So now we've got well, not really newer. The other members have been in the band for like the guitar player has been in the band for like 8 years, and this drummer is now our I don't even know, our 8th or 7th or 8th drummer.
Spinal Tap.
Maybe 10th drummer. I lost count, but he's been with the band for maybe like 3 years now, and he's just yeah. Yeah, we've come to know so many people through the local scene here in LA, and we're adjacent to Hollywood. We're about 30 minutes from Hollywood, downtown LA. So Long Beach is kind of one of the epicenters of local music as well, which is where we're based out of. So we're able to just meet people from all walks of life, people that enjoy music, film, and you know, anything that's art related or you know, anything where you can express yourself, poetry and writing and painting.
The arts.
Like yeah, the arts. So we've come to meet a lot of those people being in the scene for a long time, since well, we
more than 20 years.
Yeah, more than 20 years. We started playing in 1996.
Okay.
And just putting it down, you know, we there used to be a thriving backyard scene and warehouse scene, and just going out and just playing. It was so much fun. That whole scene doesn't exist because our whole area went from $100,000 homes to $1 million homes overnight. So we got stuck in the middle, and that affects the music scene because most artists can't make that kind of money. So everybody started moving out.
Yeah, all our friends are gone. You know, everybody had to move out of town. They had to out of state. You know what I mean? So, but we still believe in everything that we do. You know, we love the music. We love the lifestyle.
And we're lifers.
Yeah.
We're lifers. We're going to play music till the day we die. We're not doing it to be on MTV or to be famous. We're doing it because we love music and we love art. And by playing music, we've met so many people that are so creative. We've been able to be in this documentary and, you know, just to go out and see the world. I think the only way to become cultured is to see the world. And that the metal community is one of the most accepting communities that exists. People have it all backwards. they don't even understand because they've never really been involved. But it's one of those communities that is accepting of all musicians. This is Kumar, our guitarist.
How you guys doing?
How's it going?
HTH for life. You know how that is.
Tell them a little bit, wants to know a little bit about HTA.
What can I say that hasn't been said already? A lot of years, a lot of history, a lot of blood sacrifice. Worth it.
So how long have you been in the band?
16 years, I think.
How long have you been in the
I
band?
think almost 16 years.
Holy
Almost.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have been playing
Yeah.
for a long
2000.
time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up as a fan of the band.
He started out a little kid.
Yeah.
He was a kid hanging out, you know, listening to us practice and just, you know.
Playing acoustic guitar on the street.
It's
Yeah.
fun.
He was a street kid, and we had a punk rock store downtown, and he would just play all the fucking songs.
He already knew everything.
Yeah, and one day the guitarist was like, you know what? He was gonna go play with the guys from Monster Magnet. He was like, you know what? Me and the guys from Monster Magnet are starting a band. So it was like the singer and the bass player of Monster Magnet with our drummer and our guitarist. And they went and they started some side project. So right away I was like, hey Kumar, what's up? You want to jump on board?
Yep.
And he already fucking knew the song.
Yep. It was over.
It was like overnight he was already with it.
Yeah. Nobody got to try out.
It worked out pretty well for you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
And yeah, so like before I kind of go into some of the other questions I had, I have a little familiarity kind of with your like the Hollywood like, metal scene only because my wife's uncle was one of Lemmy's best buddies.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Scott Albanisius. I don't know if you know the guy.
Yeah,
But,
we just played the Rainbow.
Oh yeah. He used to hang at the room. I think he's banned from the Rainbow, but I won't get into that.
Yeah.
Scott used to go to the Rainbow a lot. So yeah, so you know, like, so I just hearing stories from them. I got to meet Lemmy a few times, like, so I just, you know, kind of the whole scene. It sounds like, you know, obviously it's a little different now than maybe it was. Like you were saying, there was a huge thriving scene at one point, but like still, the metal community kind of always had a base out near you guys. Like metal has been synonymous with that whole area.
Absolutely.
Kind of cool. So tell me about this. I'm really interested in the film, and I haven't gotten to watch the whole thing. I just started to watch it the other day, and but tell me like how you got involved with this Road Dogs film, because that's really cool. Like and so all four of you that are currently in the frame right now, you guys were, I guess, all part of the band at that point, because that was about 10 years ago. So yeah.
Well, the movie was about the craziest bands on the West Coast, and at the time, that was our circle. Edwin from Kettle Cadaver, who's passed away, Tracy from the Peppermint Creeps. We were all really good friends. It's not like we planned it or we decided, oh, one of our friends was just always had a camera. We didn't even know what the fuck he was doing. He was just like, one day I'm going to use this shit. And then
he was at every show. Every event we ever, you know, parties, the whole, like, he was just always filming.
And that it was real. And, you know, rock and roll is really fucking dangerous. People don't understand what you can fall into and the kind of lifestyle. If you really get involved and you're really playing, and the highs and the lows, no matter who you are, if you play a big show and next thing you know you're by yourself, you have to deal with that shit.
Yep.
And some people deal with drugs, other people write more music, other people have hobbies. Some of the fuckers just have drugs, and you see the outcome of it. Now that when we watch the documentary, it's really hard because everybody's fucking dead. You know, this whole Pumpkin Man is a tribute to Edwin from Kettle Cadaver, and you know, who passed away himself. Tracy passed away. So it's really cool to see somebody like you who's watching the documentary and to know that they still exist, that,
Right.
you know, that their music is still getting played and that, you know, it's
Yeah,
still out there.
And it's like I wasn't familiar with your three bands prior to hearing you guys a few weeks ago for the first time and getting into kind of your new album and your new stuff. And then I started like watching the documentary. Like I said, I haven't quite finished through it. I'm really excited to kind of get back to it. And like, but I the other two bands I hadn't heard of at all until I pressed play. You know what I mean? So that's cool to like kind of learn some new bands. And you know, it is of course bittersweet to learn bands when they're gone. but still to get to experiencing them through, you know, the music lives on. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well, that and to go to a film festival. Us being a band from Long Beach, we got to go to Paris, and the place was packed. It showed, and we couldn't even believe it because nobody give a fuck about us in LA, and yet I'm in fucking Paris, and there's all these people getting in line to get a fucking autograph from the band because of the documentary. So it was an experience just going and seeing that.
Yeah, it made it to the Paris Film Festival, the Chicago Film Festival. It was shown in like Switzerland and Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was our friend Shane Aquino who put the whole thing together. You know, he was the guy with the camera running around. We didn't know what he was doing, but he had a plan, and then he did it. And I mean, it's amazing. It's cool that we've been able to, you know.
Well, that it's real.
Yeah.
In a time where everything is fake.
The organic way that the film came about that you're explaining, that's really cool. So it wasn't like something like, hey, I want to make a film on your crazy.
Nope.
No, he never told us.
Not at all.
He never told us.
No,
He never told us what he was doing. He was just a guy at the party with a camera.
That's awesome. Over the years,
And we would get mad at him because we were like, where's all this footage? What are you doing?
Yeah, what the fuck are you gonna do with this? Yeah, why are you filming me?
Yeah.
I can go to jail. You better stop this shit.
Man.
I see we have another member on the stage here.
What's up, guys? It's Jose from Heaven Trip to Hell. I play the drums.
Awesome. So Jose, obviously the best drummer of all the drummers of the band, right?
You know what? I try. You know, these guys, they tell me, okay, try this, try that. We really work as a team.
That's awesome.
We love all kinds of music, and we have to tell him to chill out because he's real aggro, and we just want to play clean and simple.
Hey, well, I appreciate liking all kinds of music. That's something I can hear in your sound too. That there's some influences of other stuff. You know, you said earlier, you know, you guys used to hang out at like a punk store, punk shop. You know, like that.
Yeah.
Awesome, you know, and obviously I see a Social D shirt and a Misfits shirt. You know, so we got like, you know, kind of the punk meets metal influence. You know, I was talking about Lemmy before. If you want to talk about punk meets metal, you know,
Southern California, man, punk and metal.
yeah, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of good punk out here too because the 80s OC punk movement was huge out here. So there's still some remnants of that. We had TSOL and DI and all of those bands that came out of Orange County, Adolescents in the 80s. That's right up the street from us.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole genre was really influential in our style.
We're
too.
right in the middle.
That very simplistic approach where it's almost like grunge music, where the simpler the better, you know. We really try to utilize those types of concepts when we're creating as well.
Do you find that your scene, like the you know, like where the area you're in out there, like that the punk and metal scenes get along well or not so much?
I think
I
so.
think so.
I think so. I the thing with punk rock is punk rock has gatekeepers like a lot of other genres. You can't be punk because of this or that. With metal, if you don't fit in, it's like, okay, you're metal. Come on in, you're welcome.
Yeah, you don't fit in, you're gonna be metal.
So that's why you can categorize bands like Tool as metal and those other bands that are
Rush.
that are truly just alternative music because you can't really fit them into
It was like some alternative industrial something, but they're metal because nobody knows what to call them.
Yeah, because metal is accepting of people that don't fit in. And not only because of the sound, but because of the image and so on and so forth. And we're huge fans of all styles of music, I think all of us. But we just fall into the metal genre because it's accepting. And with punk rock, it's not like that. Punk rock, you need to go by these rules or these certain standards to be a punk rock band. And we're aware of that.
Right? Like, if you're more ingrained in a certain scene that's kind of more accepting, like, because like I would say like metal was not a thing. I spent a lot of time in the scene I grew up in North Jersey because it was a very punk and hardcore. It was the 90s, so ska, you know, like kind of like that stuff, and they all kind of went together. And the metal were kind of at the metal clubs, but then I'd have those crossover hardcore thrash punk bands that played at the metal clubs and the punk clubs, you know?
Like Biohazard.
Right. Yeah, Biohazard is a great example of a band, who played with the punk bands, but they were also straight up, they played with the metal bands,
Yeah, and accepted in both sides.
Right. So it's cool to get to hear like that. And I think that's one of the things that always drew me to someone like Motorhead. Because you go to a Motorhead show and you've got freaking crust punks next to, traditional.
Everything.
And you're next to everyone. And no one dare say a word bad about Motorhead, right? So it didn't matter where you came from. And so like I love that in my head, and this is why I'm asking the question about your scene. In my head, your scene, like the Hollywood metal scene, always seemed very accepting of so much, because in my head I always associated that with Motorhead. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
And so there's so much different stuff like that all kind of work together.
It's so true. We got to play at the Rainbow Bar in Hollywood, and they had the Lemmy statue, and I actually got to meet him. I actually got to be around him, and we got because it's so accepting out there, and the Hollywood scene, we were able to play also with the Dead Kennedys, some punk.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very diverse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for us it's real crazy because we've played with
Body Count,
Soulfly, LA
Short.
Guns, Too Short.
JFA.
Yeah.
Oh,
JFA, dude.
yeah.
Yeah, JFA is the shit.
So we played with like a whole array of different bands and different styles. And since we don't fit in, we actually end up fitting in.
yeah, everybody calls us a crossover too, because some people consider us goth and some people consider us metal.
We
and
just
other
played a
people
hip hop
consider us
festival,
punk.
and we were the only band
Yeah.
at this hip hop festival.
Yeah.
And it was sold
And it
out.
was sold out, outrageous. And we were the only, and they were like all about it. It was like unbelievable.
Yeah, we were the only band with live instruments. Everyone else was just on a
A
track.
track. Yeah.
It was unbelievable. They all they did was change sneakers.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
But it makes it possible for us to play at diverse crowds,
Yeah.
diverse places, and go places, and just try to mix in with different crowds. I think there's also our songs. Some of them have a good punk message. This new album is great. Adazi recorded this, and it's at Fuel
Music
Studio.
Studio.
Yeah, so it was great. It was
Last
great.
night we were the pick of the week
Yeah.
in Brazil on the what's the guy's name? Kisser
Andreas Kissinger.
from Sepultura. He has his own radio show on FM radio in Brazil, and we were the pick of the week. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Yeah, I mean, you don't get bigger in like international metal circles than a band like Sepultura, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just to be played in a different country, is really cool.
That is really awesome. So, talking about all these, mashups and crossovers and different genres, you're wearing a Misfits shirt right now, right? So clearly, that's punk and metal.
Yeah,
All right,
I think the whole dancing project too, the Samhain, all that's like the mixing of it.
The horror rock. It was kind of like Alice Cooper, just darker on a different level.
With rock and roll.
Plus, at least myself, I really like the 80s style of goth and dark music. So that was really influential. So I think with the song like Pumpkin Man, it was kind of all of these influences to really come up with something really dark, and the imagery was Shane Aquino. So he was a really good friend with Edwin as well from Kettle Cadaver, and they were a band in the local scene. So we wanted to pay tribute to that style of music and that type of imagery, because that's what they were known for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, the more I get to know kind of Kettle Cadaver through this doc and then listening to stuff, I'm sure I'll even vibe the song that I already dig a lot more as I kind of see that tribute. That's really cool. Like,
Have you seen any of Edwin's videos?
I've only watched one or two of them since Pumpkin Man. So now I watched that, and I've watched a few back.
Yeah, he was pretty hardcore, man.
Yeah, he was the real deal. He used to call everyone safety rockers because they had the safety on the trigger.
Mhm.
And one thing that stuck with me that Edwin told me through a conversation we were having was that when he was younger, he had a Slayer poster on his wall, and his dad told him those guys are posers. That's not even real blood, because there was this picture of Slayer covered in blood, and he said rain and blood. He said those guys are posers. That's not even real blood. So that stuck with him. And he wanted to be that hardcore to where the blood was real.
Yeah.
And anyways, that's in a film as well. There's a documentary on him called Cold Hands Dig Deep. So yeah, so he's talking about that as well in the film, when he wanted to create that horror style of rock, that imagery. He wanted it to be genuine and as authentic,
for real,
as authentic as could be. So we really had a lot of respect for him. He was in the local scene doing shows, and they had a crazy crowd. They definitely had a metal crowd. So their crowd was pretty hardcore. Our crowd is hardcore too, because we play some pretty heavy stuff too. But they were more of a punk kind of death rocker crowd. They're really cool.
Really cool.
Really
and,
cool
and really
guys.
cool people.
Yeah, really cool people. So,
Like, unless he was on stage getting down, or you going to fight, because he left the fight, but he had a ring in his house to fight. So he'd be like, well, let's go to my house and fight. And he was a really cool guy. And when you see the videos, and then he married Eva O from a Christian dad too. So he was married to her when he died.
So since we're talking kind of this horror imagery and stuff, and in the very beginning of us chatting, you mentioned that you're a big horror movie guy. I don't know about the rest of you guys. Kind of what kind of movies. I'm a film guy in general. Music and movies are kind of like two things that go hand in hand for me. And I write about both. I consume so much of both. I got into booking concerts because I wanted to be part of the scene when I was a kid, but I didn't play any instruments, so I gave my friends shows. Into writing about it so I could keep doing it and keep being part of it, even though I didn't have the time to book anymore. So that's kind of like, how that happened. And then my love of film got me into not just writing about all these musicians, but now starting to write about film. So like it kind of all went together for me. And that said, right, so tell me a little bit about some of your favorite films. I'm just curious. So, each of you guys, what are some of your favorite films, favorite styles of films, things that you're really into?
In the genre, in the horror genre?
Period. But horror genre too, yeah.
I love it all. Actually, Gerardo and I were in a film class briefly in City College, so we got to study like Alfred Hitchcock films, and we grew up watching the original Twilight Zone. Yeah, that was so that stuff for us, where it just kind of gets your brain ticking, is the stuff that really intrigued us at a very early age. So you see a lot of that in the horror genre, but I think in the early stages, original horror for me would have to be like the Exorcist and things like that. Even movies like Jaws, where you're afraid to close your eyes in the shower, the classics. Yeah, then a movie has left its mark on you. Those are the type of films I like. And there's a couple of newer films out, but it's really hard because the genre is so saturated now. The horror film genre, it's so saturated with crap, just the way that music is saturated, because the equipment is so accessible now. You can film a movie with a camera from Best Buy now, and it's not like back in the day where you needed.
Yeah, that everyone can do it, but it's also makes it harder to find the good stuff.
Yes, the good stuff, because you have to have the equipment and the production, as Vicky stated, back in the day, and it's the same thing with music. You don't need that stuff anymore. You can write a hit album on your laptop computer, so you have crappy music and crappy films. So you have to kind of dig through this stuff, but we're pretty good at it. We used to hang out in record stores and just dig all day. So we do the same thing with movies.
Yeah, man.
For me, it was definitely The Exorcist. I grew up in Mexico City.
Oh,
I was in the first grade, and they told us, "Oh, we're gonna have a movie. It's gonna be our movie day or whatever, right?" And we were so excited. Like we had to pay like a quarter to get into the movie, right? And we're like, okay, so we go to the movie, and it was The Exorcist, and I was like in the first grade. I was like, what? So that completely, like, I had nightmares for months. You know what I mean? But that was such a good movie. You know what I mean? Like after that, that just set the bar for me. And then, but another movie that I really, really like, I would say, is Natural Born Killers. I really like that movie too.
I really like Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
I really like that movie. I like the scenery in it with the temples, and I know it's not a slasher movie, but this fool already mentioned most of the tight ones. Yeah.
No, there's a lot of tight ones.
Well, there's a lot of really tight horror.
There's a lot of really good ones. I like the
like
ones that kind of flip the script. Like Mouth of Madness left a good impression.
That's
because,
a real good one too.
Because everyone, you're watching the movie, and if you've seen it, you read the book, and a lot of the Stephen King stuff is really cool. Anyways, I like when the movie kind of tricks you. And then there's like kind of like the underground cheesy ones that are good, like The Dentist, That one, that one's good too. But then they do like a part 2, and it's kind of cheesy, because they should have just kind of let it die in the early stages. And the very first Hostel movie was really good. It left a really good impression. But then they do good with the one movie, and then they franchise it, and they want to do part 10.
Take him
12.
again.
So
Scream 5.
Hostile movie too, but when Eli Roth left the series, it's awful. And I was like, why did I watch the next one? Like, it was so bad. The third movie is awful. And like, now it's funny because those are like, often called like torture porn movies because of all the torture and the gore. But I would say like, there's so much interesting like thematic stuff going on too that it's really cool to like, if you can get past the excessive gore and get into the other stuff, it's really cool. But yeah, they're not for everybody.
Yeah, I kind of grew up. I kind of fell in love with the Halloween stuff, but I was kind of low key obsessed with Faces of Death when I was growing up. Like
yeah,
I was like really
That's a
obsessed
good
with it.
one,
Actually, all of them.
that's the real gore. Now we have the internet.
Yeah, I still love all of them.
the internet.
It's such a weird Faces of Death is so weird because you have a combination of a kind of cheesy host,
Dr. B. Gross.
serious death stuff, and then also some stuff that doesn't look real. You come to find out later, like it wasn't all real, but some of it was extremely real. So it's such a weird amalgamation of like not knowing what parts you're watching are straight up and which parts are like,
Traces of Death is good too.
yeah.
Traces of Death was all real.
Yeah.
We were watching that shit in 6th grade.
Motherfucker.
Yeah,
The sequel and everything.
that was my favorite movie in 6th grade.
I'm more of a young guy, so I'm like into it, and like shit like that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I really enjoyed the original Tales from the Crypt.
Yes.
When it used to be on HBO with the Crypt Keeper. As I was younger then, and the whole intro and everything was really good to me. I thought it was really well done, and I think George Romero had something to do with that.
Yeah, he's a part of it.
Yeah, he took part in it, and he had some good stuff too. Some of that earlier stuff he did with the zombie stuff was really good. I really enjoyed that, but that genre really got saturated with a lot of crap too. The whole zombie genre, anyways, there's a lot of good stuff in the horror comedy genre too. There's some really good stuff. I actually got to see The Bride of Chucky in the movie theater in an all African American movie theater with a bunch of black people, and it was one of the best experiences ever because people were just screaming their heads off.
Oh shit!
Like some of the best experiences I've had have been in like black neighborhood theaters as well.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You could. I don't know. I grew up in the suburbs, and the first time I had a real experience of watching a movie in like an urban environment with an urban crowd that was like probably 2/3 black. I was like, wow, everybody's cheering and enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
Clapping and
For
cheering.
sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we grew up. Yeah,
It's awesome,
Yeah, it
man.
was off the hook.
Fun.
that's dope.
What are your favorite?
What was that?
What are your favorite?
Oh my God. Don't ask me. I like so much. Geez, if I had to pick like favorite movies, The Wicker Man from 1973 is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Also one of my favorite movies, period, of all time. They Live by John Carpenter, the 80s sci-fi horror with Roddy Piper.
That is a
So
good
that's a
movie.
badass movie.
Yeah, those are probably two of my favorite like horror movies of all time. But the list is
Nightbreed.
really long. Like,
Nice.
every time I have to decide on, and probably my other like standard answer is one of my favorites would be like Clockwork Orange. I'm a big Clockwork
Oh,
Orange.
yeah. That's classic.
Sure. That's a classic.
Not an easy watch, but a really great watch.
Yep.
You know, some brutal scenes in that movie, but really, it's really effective, man. So, yeah, well, thank you for asking. People don't usually ask me. But, yeah.
Well, we have some questions for you.
I like it.
Where you at of?
What was that?
Where are you at?
So right now I'm in central Pennsylvania because I'm at a conference, but I live close to Philly. So I live near Philadelphia. So I'm a few hours. I'm actually near like where Penn State College is. Penn State University.
That's tight.
But normally I'm closer to Philly. But so I'm in a hotel room right now because I'm at a conference. But yeah, being in the Philly area, I love it. I've been here for a while, but I grew up more in the New York suburbs in northern New Jersey. So that was the scene that I kind of grew up in, the punk scene up there, and kind of came down for college, met a girl, got married, and stayed down here, you know. But I'll never go back. I'm not going back to Jersey. Sorry.
Shout out to everybody from Jersey.
But yeah, so as I kind of wind down and wrap up, I want to ask you guys a little bit about your current project, the album that you, or just the release you just did. Besides Pumpkin Man, there's a few other songs on that. That whole album, did that just come out?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the process of like recording that, how that went, and where people can check that out.
Vicky?
Well, we had just put out an album right before the pandemic, right?
Time to Riot.
Time to Riot. And so we were ready to like release that and go, start playing shows and start promoting and moving on. And then the pandemic hit. And so at that point, we had already kind of just been jamming, playing around with new music, new songs, new ideas. And everything shut down completely. And it was like, can't play any shows, can't go on tour, can't do anything. Let's just work on these songs. You know what I mean? And so that's how the whole thing came about. These 4 songs that we thought, let's just put everything into it. We have all this time, we have nothing else to do. And we were all going crazy, having to be home and, not being able to go out. And that's how it all started. And so we have Pumpkin Man that is the first song. And then the other 3 songs just kind of, we love so much, so many different styles of music that we thought, let's just do everything and anything that we can. Let's just throw it all out there. And so they're very different. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of obviously, Gerardo's vocals, he always comes through. But also like adding in the guitars and the drums and Sergio's bass. Everybody, when we get into the studio, we just start jamming and coming up with like everybody throws out ideas, and then at the end we add lyrics, and it all just worked out. You know what I mean? That's
really awesome. And you're right. I did notice each of the songs kind of has their own vibe. It's really cool to that. Is that, and as someone who's newer to your music and hasn't gotten to dive into as much of your older stuff, like, is that representative of you guys as a whole? Like, have you always kind of had like a wide variety of different styles throughout? It sounds like probably.
I think you're always growing as a musician. And we decided that we didn't give a fuck what anybody thought.
Yeah.
We create music for ourselves, and we look at it like we have to be a reflection of what we see. And if I see everything we see is fucked up. LA's insane. There's a fucking bum on every fucking corner. The homelessness and just the whole mess that we're in. So it's kind of hard for us to write like a normal song, which what people would say, when all we're writing about is what we see and how, as an artist, all we can be is a reflection of what we see in society.
Yeah, we always feel that it's our duty to report what's going on the streets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's we're putting out whatever we see is going on and just our point of view. Obviously.
And being involved in real art is difficult. To be involved in real art and the real music scene, because it's fast drugs, fast women, no money everywhere. You know.
Well, I think another thing too is you have to know when you're creating this style of music that is not for everyone, and you have to know how to deal with people that aren't going to like your music because it isn't for everyone. But we have a lot to say and a lot to write about, and so many influences that I hear other bands in our music that have influenced us, like even like Depeche Mode and the punk rock bands that we spoke about earlier. But I think it's just when we're creating, we just try to kind of mesh everything together and at the end, hope that it sounds like Heavenly Trip to Hell, or that it sounds cool and that people will appreciate the effort. I think what's important, that the people that are familiar with the genre can listen to it and enjoy it. I think that's what's important at the end.
Well, and one of the things you just said that really struck with me, you said you a while back in the talked about how you were the only the hip hop festival recently, right?
Yeah.
So your style way different than probably. But you know what vibes so much with what you just said that really fits in and why the hip hop crowd probably really appreciated you. You write about what you see and you believe in telling it how it is, and that's always been what hip hop's been about. So I totally
we love it. We were influenced by all that music. It all came out of our home turf here in Long Beach. Everyone from Eazy-E and Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and all of these artists, they were all really influential because we grew up in that same type of environment, and we've been able to play with some of these artists as well. And hip hop was so influential to us that we try to even incorporate some of that into our stuff. Gerardo's not rapping, but even with the drums and the bass, because we really don't care what the final product is. We want the final product to just be enjoyed by us, most importantly.
And that it's
That's true.
That's true. And that it's fun. And hip hop is one of the styles, one of the genres that represented the people in the streets. And I think that it's become what happened to glam rock back in the 80s, where it used to be from the streets with bands like Guns N' Roses to where it just got super cheesy with groups like Trickster and the Winger, and Slaughter. That by the end it was just so cheesy and so over the top. The same thing is happening to hip hop, where it's been happening for a while, to where people are just gonna ultimately end up hating it.
And when rock and roll first came out, rock and roll was the newspaper. Rock and roll was cutting edge. And people have forgotten that. They look at rock and roll as something else. And rock and roll was dangerous. Like if you were in a rock and roll band, don't tell your mama. You know what I mean? It was some shit. And it should be. And it should be because at least for me, I'm a true believer that in any sort of art, even if you're painting or you're a graffiti artist, you're hip hop, country, I don't care. You have to be on the streets because on the streets is where the art is.
Yeah, when the pandemic hit, we chose to put out Time to Riot and just focus on our music. And now I think that album that just came out, which is Punkin Man, it represents kind of our influences. But if you go back, HTH has a lot of albums, a lot of music on Spotify, on Apple Music, and all that. And they've been growing. They've been around for 20 plus years,
Yeah, so people can check you out on pretty much anywhere they can find any music, right? So you can check it out on Apple, on Spotify, all those spots. So Yeah, so I definitely encourage everybody that's checking this out to check that out. And like me, finish up watching Road Dogs and see what you guys were like 10 years ago and then see you now. And
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
stuff. Thank you guys so much for chatting with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great talking to you. Let's keep in touch, man.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
Take care.
Woo!
That's fine.